morning. This is Mark's Musings, and I'm Mark, and we are here at WCTV in Wilmington, Massachusetts, and we're doing a program called Mark's Musings, where we interview local authors and ask them about their books. This morning, we are happy to have with us a local author by the name of Debra Martin. Good morning, Deborah.
Good morning, Mark. Thank you for having me.
It's wonderful to have you here too, and it's a nice summer day. And
It's beautiful outside.
Yeah, and we had a little rain earlier this week, but not too much, and so the rest of the week looks pretty good. So this morning, I met you recently at an authors fair up in Tewksbury, and it was wonderful to. It's wonderful to have you here too, and it's a nice summer day. And
It's beautiful outside.
Yeah, and we had a little rain earlier this week, but not too much, and so the rest of the week looks pretty good. So this morning, I met you recently at an authors fair up in Tewksbury, and it was wonderful to hear you talk about your books and meet some of the other authors. Did you enjoy it too?
Yes, it was very enjoyable. Writing is such a solitary endeavor. It's always great to meet other authors.
And to talk to some of your patrons too. It was nice to be able just to meet with people.
Yes, it was wonderful. Sold a couple books, so that was a plus.
There you go. And it's too. It's nice talking about your stories. You know, some people will say, "Well, what's your book about?" You know, and then they'll say, "Well, you'll give them a short synopsis, you know, about the story." Of course, you don't want to.
We don't want to give away.
Yeah,
none of the twists and turns.
But it's wonderful. So tell me a little bit how you got started. How did you get into the business of writing?
Well, my brother David and I have always enjoyed reading fantasy books.
Yes.
And one day he was at Barnes & Noble, and we were on the phone together, and he said, "There's nothing new out here. What am I going to read?" And I said, "I don't have anything new either, so let's figure it out." And he said, "We could write a book." And I was like, "Okay, well, I've always enjoyed writing."
Isn't that something? Yes.
And so we set out to write a fantasy. We built the world, and writing with a co-author is challenging.
I bet.
You have to leave your ego at the door. And we hadn't really got into a rhythm yet, so we were like, "Okay, you write chapter 1 and I'll write chapter 2, and here's the basic outline." And when we swapped chapters, we found that they were almost identical. So we had to stop doing that way, and so now we write one chapter at a time. We send it to the other one to edit, and then it goes back to Dave, and then the final edits are made, and then it's added to the main file.
Okay, great. So how do you decide on who's going to take the lead in that particular chapter, or do you...
It depends on what the chapter is about.
Okay.
Dave is a retired Marine,
Okay,
so
yeah.
if there's any fighting sequences
Yes,
within the
yes.
chapter,
Yes.
I can write up to the fight scene, and then I just write insert fight scene and send the chapter back to David.
Sure. Well, that sounds terrific. Are there times that you communicate with your brother on a weekly basis or something like that?
It was a daily basis. That we used to chat back and forth, and it helped us define how we wanted to write the book. And we came to the conclusion, when you're writing with a co-author, you really need to have a detailed outline of where the story is going to go.
Yes.
With our first book, The Rule of Atharia,
Go ahead.
we had about 2/3 of the book written.
And
Then we thought of a fabulous idea. But of course that meant we had to go all the way back to the beginning and insert little foreshadowing throughout the novel to make it exciting and for that twist to be a real surprise for the book. So that was, I think we started writing back in 2008. 2008 or 2008 it was.
Yes.
And that book actually got us an agent.
Oh, great, great.
However, she decided that she didn't want to be in the publishing business anymore.
Oh my God.
And so
That's a switch.
it was right around the time when Amazon offered the author platform for independent authors to be able to upload their own books.
Nice, nice. Yeah.
The writing, of course, is just one part of the book.
Yes.
You know, we had to have an editor, we had to have a graphic artist to make the covers for us, and and then we found a terrific graphic artist, and she was also able to format for the paperback.
Oh,
so we've had her for probably since like 2010.
Okay, good.
And so that first series,
that's just for the cover, and
that's for the cover, and the inside of the book, if there's maps or
yes.
if there's little embellishments on the page, especially like to break a point of view.
Yes.
There's instead of just having like 3 little stars.
Yes.
We would have embellishments.
Okay.
And Terry would do that for our books.
That's interesting.
So we wrote 2 books in that series, and the 3rd book is in development. But we got tired of writing that series, and that's when we started writing our Assassin series.
Oh, yes, yeah.
Which was much more exciting for us.
Yes. I read a few excerpts from 2 of them, The Assassin's Curse and The Witch's Curse. So they are thrilling and keep you on your edge of your seat.
And that's what we were going for.
Yeah.
We started out that this was just going to be a duology. There was just going to be 2 books.
Oh, yes.
But at the end of Witch's Curse, we put this little kernel of a thought at the back. And then as soon as we published Witch's Curse, I was flooded with emails saying, when's book 3 coming out?
Isn't it something?
So
we have an audience there.
We do. Unfortunately, we haven't finished the 3rd book yet because David's is a network specialist for Kaiser in California.
Okay.
And so his schedule became ridiculously busy.
Yes.
And so the 3rd book is about halfway written. So we hope to get it written by next spring. And
that's interesting. Now, how do you do the background required for the setting, for instance?
Well, we have to design the world first.
Okay.
Before we even think about what we want to write.
I noticed there's a map you have in one of your books, and it looks like there's a European.
It's a very European theme.
And then there are, in that map, there are climate changes along in different areas. So you go from a desert to a mountain to a frigid
the ice flows,
and things
yes.
like. So that was really interesting. I looked at some of those climates, and then when you read the book, you see the people in the book go into those areas.
In Witch's Curse, there is a quest to find the legendary witch stone.
Yes.
And there's only one clue from an ancient manuscript. And so they have to go through all of the climates, thinking that, all right, if I find this clue, will I be able to find the next clue?
Oh, yes.
So that book is very detailed for how the quest is handling the different climates.
Yes, yeah. I noticed in one of the battles that I read, there is an open area and they're being chased by a group, and they're exposed because they're in such an open area, and they're trying to get into the higher ground or into the forest so that they can have protection. So,
yes.
So those are all interesting little tidbits that you say, oh yeah. How are they going to stay? How are they going to stay protected? They're way out in the open. Of course, they're going to get shot at or whatever.
Right. The good thing about these books is because David has such a military background, the battles and the fight scenes are authentic.
Yes. Yeah.
So it adds a layer to our writing that I think people can identify with. That it's not just a girl writing what she thinks the battle should be.
Sure.
It's an actual military man.
Yes.
Making them very realistic.
Yes. One of the scenes I noticed that one of the characters has just 2 daggers, whereas the other character has swords. And so I said, gee, how are they going to do that?
How are they going to do that?
Yeah.
Well, our main character, Jetta DeLongo, is a master of the knives.
Yes.
And the whole premise of the book was Jetta rose through the ranks of the Assassin Guild
Yes.
very highly.
Okay.
And he was sent on this very delicate mission to retrieve these 2 children
Yes.
for the Countess of Berkshire.
Yes.
So he thinks it's just a quick in and out, steal the babies, and deliver them,
Yes.
and he's done. And he believes that after this mission, that he will be promoted to a senior assassin.
Oh, yes.
Unfortunately for Jetta, the twins' mother realizes that she's being hunted and has a surprise for him.
Uh-oh. Spoiler.
Jetta has this sixth sense that he should have paid attention to.
Yes.
He got this tingling at the back of his neck that something wasn't quite right.
Uh-oh.
And when he entered the building, the witch was waiting for him.
Oh, yes.
And blasted him with a flow of magic that knocked him out.
Yeah, I noticed you said elemental blast. Is that some kind of a...
An elemental blast is more like, let's say, if you wanted to throw an item through the door or through a window, you had enough power behind that it would the window would explode on impact.
Okay. So it's like the blast is some kind of lightning bolt or that
Yes.
type of
Yes.
force.
And actually we have on the cover of Assassin's Curse, we have the witch holding 2 elemental blasts in her hand.
Oh.
So, and you can see Jetta coming through the window, and he's like, "Ooh, no,
Uh-oh.
I'm in for a surprise." And that's the whole premise of the book. He actually does get one of his knives off before he's knocked unconscious.
Yes.
And fatally wounds the mother.
Okay. Yes.
She is terrified that her children will fall into the wrong hands because they are the children of prophecy.
Okay.
And there's forces that want them. The white witches want to teach them and develop their skills, and the black witches want to use them for evil.
Yes.
The witch is dying, and so what she does is grabs a hold of Jetta's hand and does a compunction spell on him,
Okay.
which basically means that he is now bonded to the children. He cannot leave them, and he must do everything within his power to save them.
So that's a curse that she gave to him.
Yes,
Oh.
it's a compunction curse, and he
Yeah.
wakes up.
What does that mean, compunction?
It means that he tries to walk away from this apartment when the witch is dead, and every time he tries to walk through the door, all of a sudden he finds himself back at the crib with the 2 babies.
Okay.
And so it's so overwhelming to him that he cannot do anything except pick them up and run.
Yeah, okay.
And unfortunately,
Protect them. Yeah.
protect them.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, assassins never leave the Assassin Guild.
Oh, yeah.
It's against the code.
Okay.
So when Jetta doesn't show up with the children to turn them over to the Countess, they know something's wrong.
Wrong. Yeah.
And so they sent another assassin to track him
Okay.
and bring him back
So
and
that-
bring the children. And that's the premise of the book. The other assassin is Maeve, and he is ruthless. And he's always been jealous of Jeddah and his quick rise through the ranks.
Okay.
So that sets up the, yes.
Story there.
That
yeah.
sets up the major conflict in Assassin's Curse.
That is terrific, yes. And I see how you've also gone from book 1 to book 2, the carrying on the same ideas.
Yes.
On, yeah.
Yes, because at the end of Assassin's Curse, we do resolve the main issue in the book. But while the twins are safe, Jeddah's wife and unborn son has been put under an unnatural coma.
Oh, okay.
And there's no cure. The witches can't find a cure for it. And the only thing that they can hope is to find the legendary witch stone, which has more power than a dozen witches combined.
So
that's the quest in Witch's Curse.
Nice. That's terrific to come up with all these little ideas like this. And
brainstorming was really fun for this. And like I said, we do have a detailed outline for where the story is going to go, because we don't want to be surprised again like we were in our first series that, okay, we're going to go this direction now. Now we got to go back and rewrite, 7 chapters.
I remember when I was first married, my son and I, computers were just being invented at the time in the early 70s and 80s, and there was a program called CompuServe on the computer, and it was all text-based. There wasn't any visual computers at that time, and so we would be going through stories like this where there was text lines that said, and the witch goes down a corridor, turns left, and then the next line says, what does she see on the left? And it was kind of odd following that story along by reading.
Because you were reading code, basically, you weren't reading a narrative.
Yeah. So that was my first sojourn into reading stories online. CompuServe, that was the name of that.
That's interesting.
That group. So that's great. So this is a wonderful. So have you had a lot of success with these?
This series has. I would say probably a moderate success for us.
Nice.
I think that we might have lost a few fans because the third book hasn't been written yet.
Oh, I know. They're impatient.
Yes, the emails asking for the third book have trickled. But I do have a blog, and on the blog I have all the pages for all the books that we've written, and I do have a blurb that the third book is under development and it is being written, but sometimes life interferes.
I know.
But we hope to have it. We hope to have it out in 2020.
Good, very good. So they'll your audience will be satisfied.
I hope so.
Very good. So you've had good success with that, and you do some social media. So you have Facebook, and you have your blogs, and you have your website, so that all keeps it moving. Do you have events that you go to that help promote the book, like bookstores and things like that? Have you done any of that? Or?
The latest event I did was with the Tewksbury Authors.
Yes.
Usually how I promote the book is through online ads.
Yes.
There are a number of ad agencies that will promote the book, and you'll get a big rush of sales. You have to put the book on sale.
Yes.
Always on sale.
Yes.
To help gain new readers, especially readers who haven't heard of us before.
Yeah.
So, for example, if we put Assassin's Curse on sale, which is normally $4.99 for the digital version, we'll have to run an ad for the book to be 99 cents.
for a short period of
for
time.
a very short period of time, usually like 3 days.
Yes, yes.
And that will gain us a lot of sales.
Nice.
And then hopefully it'll bring new readers into our world of assassins, and that they will go on and purchase book 2 as well.
Good, very good, yeah. So that's the incentive that you have to increase your audience.
Because there's millions of books being published on Amazon, you have to keep up with trying to bring your books to the forefront.
Yes, yeah.
It can be daunting.
Yes, yeah.
It can be frustrating because a lot of the ad agencies, you can only bring a book forward once every 60 days.
Oh, okay.
And
okay.
then once your book is out there, you don't always get accepted for another ad.
Yeah.
So you have to pace the ads and try to get the best audience that you can.
Very nice. Very good. Yeah. That sounds terrific. It looks like you're doing well that way. So you've got social media, you've got the books, you have events that you go to, you have an audience, and you have emails too. A lot of people write and comment, and then you have to
Yes.
reply back.
Reply back, and then also I have a newsletter that goes out periodically.
Oh, good.
Announcing new books or a sale.
Yeah.
And on the blog, on my The Two Ends of the Pen is the name of the blog.
Yes.
On the right hand side is a sign up for the newsletter.
Okay.
So people that come to the blog thinking that they're going to read an excerpt for another author see that they can also sign up for my newsletter, and I get more readers that way as well.
There you go. And it's a way of advertising your
Yes.
present book and new books. Yeah.
Yeah, the blog is very time consuming.
Yes.
I've cut down to 3 times a week, and I will host other author books. I work with a couple of tour companies and bring attention to a myriad of authors.
Oh, nice. Yeah.
And then hopefully when they come to the website to read about a particular author, they'll see that there's also a number of pages that they can read about me as well.
There you go. There you go. Good. There's always a way to.
Well, you have to try
yeah.
as many ways as you can.
Keep your name up in the forefront there. That sounds great. So, so that sounds great. Now, so we've covered how you got started. You communicate with your brother. He's on the West Coast. You're on the East
Yes.
Coast. And you Skype, I guess, too. I saw you Skype a lot, or you text message and things
Yes.
like that. So
All of that.
yeah. And so then you either switch chapters or work on the same chapter. He does most of the fighting scenes, and you help out with the
And I can do all of the fillers.
filler scenes. Yeah. And so that's great. So you have these the Witch's Curse and Assassin's Curse books, and then you have some other books too that you are
Yes.
writing too.
When we were writing, David's job got busier and busier, and so it was longer and longer between edits.
Yes.
And so I had a couple of ideas, and so I started writing romances.
Isn't that nice? That's great.
And I didn't want to confuse our fantasy fans.
So you change your name?
So I wrote under my first name and my middle name, Debra Elizabeth.
Okay, yeah.
So I've written in Regency, England, which is from 1800 to 1820.
Okay, yes.
And then I've also written in contemporary,
yes.
which is now.
Now, when you do that, how do you do the research on that particular thing?
There are a number of sites that will explain all of the rules and regulations for young women during the Regency period.
Okay.
It is extensive.
My God, yes.
And I had to do hours and hours of research. And the best way to do research in a particular genre is just to read other authors.
Yes, yes.
So
You
I've read a ton of Regency romances.
So you pick up information from them, and that becomes formula. Then when you go to sleep at night, you dream about it.
I do. Unfortunately, I do.
And it formulates in your head, and so then from that, a nugget of a story
it forms. Yes. I have one series, The Age of Innocence, that has 3 books currently. I'm writing a novella in that world, and I also have outlined the 4th book in that series. So that's getting there. But in the meantime, writing Regency is hard because of all the rules and regulations. And I had a few ideas for contemporary romances.
Yes.
So I've written a number of those as well, which is much easier because it's today. And you can put as many rules and regulations on a person's behavior as you want.
That sounds terrific. I notice on your website, Two Ends of the Pen, you have at the top little tabs that you can click on to go to your various books. So
yes, with the various series and the different genres.
That's nice. That's the way to just easily click from one area to the
And there's also one other little series that we wrote. It's called The Dark Future.
Yes,
and they are short stories in an apocalyptic world.
Yes, okay.
We were writing those in between the major books just to let off some steam because writing fantasy is very time consuming and it is, how will I say that? You have to be focused.
Yes.
Very focused on that.
Yeah.
And so writing these little dark future stories was just a way to say, okay, let's write something that's like 20,000 words.
Oh, okay.
And pull out one little story
okay.
in this horrible future world. So we have a couple of those stories as well.
That's great. So you have quite a variety to pick from here. I noticed in your author page here you have a bunch of titles here. So how many books total do you have under your belt? Were you and your brother?
Full-length novels we have 4, and then we have the short stories. And then I have in the romance section, I think maybe I have 15.
Isn't that something? That's great. That's super. Yeah. So
I honestly I haven't counted them.
Prolific. Yeah. So you keep on writing more.
And we keep on writing.
Yeah.
It's we came to the writing career late. Yeah. Much later than I'm sure a lot of authors do.
Yeah.
And it's been wonderful just to be creative and just prove to the world you're never too old to start a new career.
When you meet your prospective readers at a book fair or somewhere, what are some of their favorite questions that they might ask you, or they might?
I went to a romance convention a few years ago, and it was so funny that when we were waiting at the airport, there was a number of other women that were going to the same convention, and we started talking, and we all had our samples of our books with us, and they say, what do you write? And I happened to mention a title, and then one of the other women said, oh, I read that book, it was awesome, when's the next one coming out? So that was fun.
Oh, that's great.
I think
free advertising,
and I think the most asked question is, when is the next book coming out?
Yeah.
There's always, when is the next book coming out?
Well, it's nice. So, do some of your patrons fall in love with different characters, or do they say they love this guy?
Yes, and it was like, when is this person going to get their own book? Mm-hmm. I just recently published a second book in a contract marriage series, and my editor, at the end of the book, said, "When is Edward's story coming out?" I was like, "Oh, Amanda, I just finished this one." So time is a little bit constricted lately because I take care of my granddaughter.
Oh, great.
And
great.
and she is a very active 3-year-old.
My God.
So
bet.
I can only write when I don't have her or when she's
Family
napping.
always comes first.
Yes. So I had a little bit of dry spell where I didn't publish for a while.
How long does it take you? Now, when you finish parts of the book, do you send it to your editor, or do you wait until you finish?
No, I
editing?
usually wait until I finish.
Everything.
And writing it, it's not always in a straight line.
Okay.
Like I'll know what the ending is, so I'll write the ending, and then I know what the beginning is. This is what happened on The Unexpected Wedding. I knew what the beginning was, and I knew what the ending was. But then I had to pull the story together
Yes.
to show readers that these two characters fell in love. There was misunderstandings. The basic boy gets girl, boy loses girl, and then of course with romance you have to have a happily ever after ending. So,
Sure. So that's great. So the editor gets. Is it a local editor or somebody online?
no, actually I had a local, not local in the United States. My first editor was in Colorado, but she got very, very busy. And when I wrote to her and said, I'm almost finished with this book, what's your schedule look like?
Yeah.
She was booked all the way through January.
Oh, yeah.
So then I had to find another editor, and I found this wonderful editor in England.
Oh, good.
And she was fast, and she was efficient, and she pointed out areas that needed a little bit of help. And then, of course, along the way, she was commenting, which was wonderful because it was like, okay, there's a twist here. Do you see that? And one of her comments was just, OMG, exclamation mark.
So you pretty much have taken out all of the grammatical errors.
As much as I can.
You can. But then the editor will give you suggestions on how to say something differently or to reposition it. Or
Yes.
something like that.
Yes. Or this word doesn't quite work. I mean, I've been through the editing process so many times that I now know not to include earlier mistakes
Yeah, okay.
because they've been corrected
Yeah.
for me.
Yeah.
So I was like, okay, don't do that. And one of the things that you find in writing that a lot of writers have to do when they do their first pass through, their first own edit before they actually send it to the editor, is take out the word that.
Oh, yes. I use that a lot myself.
Unfortunately, that is not necessary in most sentences. It is in dialogue, however, but not when you're describing an action or a scene.
Yeah.
So that was one of the things that I learned very early on when my first editor was like, no, take this out.
I belong to a writers group locally, and we critique each other's writings, so there's about 10, 15 of us in the group, and so each month we have to submit 7 pages of our current particular writing to each other. And so not only am I reading my own stories, but I'm reading 10 other authors in this group and trying to edit their 7-page submission. And so that's one of the mistakes that I'll always come up with.
Yes.
Is you can't say, don't say that, don't say this, or I'll explain something like too much exposition, and
Absolutely.
I'll be beginning to explain something rather than put it in dialogue.
Exactly, because you always want to show, not tell.
Yes.
I've also done a number of developmental edits for other authors that are my favorite,
Yeah.
and I'll say, all right, send me your book, and I'll read it and basically come up with the comments that, as a reader, this doesn't work, or this is awesome,
Yes.
or
Yeah.
include more of this. So that's always fun when you have other authors trust in your
Yes.
ability
yeah.
to edit their work.
Are you a fast reader?
Yes.
Yeah, very fast. Good, that's good. Because that's one of my biggest problems. I'm a slow reader. I sort of digest every morsel, and whereas my wife, on the other hand, she'll go through 2 books a week, and I said, my God, too quick
Yes.
for me.
Yes, I read a lot. I write reviews, and then in the author community, it's always nice to be a good citizen, to help people when you can. Like if people write to me, if authors write to me and say, hey, I'm a new author, can I do an author interview on your site?
Isn't that nice? Yeah.
And it's like, okay. When we first started out, there was this whole indie community, and I learned a lot from them.
Yes.
And decided one day I would give back, and I wrote in this group, all right, anybody who wants an author interview, let me know.
And how do you do that?
That was on the blog.
Okay, so they just answer questions that
I
you
submitted
have?
questions, and then they answered them, and I got 300 interviews. So
God, yes.
it took quite a while to get all those out. But it's being a good citizen.
That is wonderful. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Okay, I think we've sort of come to the end of our interview here, and so if people wanted to get a hold of you or find out more about your books, what would you're on Facebook, you have your website.
And on Amazon.
In Amazon. So
Yes.
tell me a little bit, for instance, do you have an email that?
Yes. So if people want to write directly to me, it's dlmartin6@yahoo.com.
Okay, so that's the email. Then if you have a Facebook page too?
I do. I have a Facebook page, an author page for Debra L. Martin, and then an author page for Deborah Elizabeth.
Okay, so we can go that way for the Facebook. And then finally your website?
Yes, you can actually go to the blog, Two Ends of the Pen, and click on the tabs at the top of the blog.
Okay.
It'll take you to all the book pages with all the buy links.
And the blog is titled?
Two Ends of the Pen.
twoendsofthepen.com? Or
No,
just
it's twoendsofthepen.blogspot.com.
Okay, good. So those are the ways that they can get in touch with you. And are you appearing at any events coming up? Or
No, actually, the Tewksbury Author event was the last one that I was going to schedule for this year, because I also have a craft business, and I
good.
have 3 major shows
Oh,
coming
boy.
up in October and November.
Keeping you busy.
I
yes.
am busy,
Yes.
so I'm not doing any more author events. I might do a written interview if the opportunity comes my way, but right now I don't have any other plans for any more author events.
Sounds good. So, well, thank you very much.
Well, thank you so much for having me.
This has been a pleasure talking with you, and so enthusiastic about
thank
your
you.
writing. And your books are terrific. I've read the excerpts from a few of them, and they are very, they capture your attention and your interest. So I'm looking forward to reading more about them.
Oh, excellent.
Thank you again.
Thank you.
I think we've come to the close of our program. Again, this is Mark's Musings at WCTV.org in Wilmington, Massachusetts. And so until next time, please check us out again, and we'll see you, and that'll be the close of our program today. Bye-bye now.